What is up, everybody? As always, it is the Fantasy First Rounders live. With me, I have real Ryan Hicks over here. And of course, can't forget about Billy the Dragon. Boys, we are halfway through the season. We are, I don't know, in some leagues I'm doing great, other leagues I'm not doing so great. It's kind of a mixed bag. I don't know about you guys. I'm getting crushed by some injuries. COVID's, killing some people this week. You know, it's getting interesting. We're starting to get into that. Who's got the deeper team? I feel like, right? How are you guys feeling so far?
Similar
Yeah,
situation. Got some teams doing very well. Got some teams struggling, and some that I started struggling and have gotten going here. St. Jude Bowl team, big blow. Derrick Henry for me. He was my RB1. I've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire and David Montgomery both on IR in that team. So my running back situation has gotten ugly very quickly, guys.
yikes. I'm actually having a great year outside of St. Jude Bowl, although I am on a 4-game win streak, 4-4 now. So I'm feeling a lot better about St. Jude than I was 4 weeks ago. And I got McCaffrey sitting in IR, and he's supposed to be coming back. So things are looking up for me there. All my other leagues that I'm trying to win in, I seem to be doing well. Knox and Dusecki have really taken off for me this year. And then AJB recently, I got him almost everywhere. It's been a pretty good year. I just wish, man, it's one good thing about drafting all those running backs. You have spares when they go down. Like, in some leagues, I'm seeing some of the backs people are starting, and it makes me want to cry for them. Like, it is rough.
It is rough. I'm still holding on to Trey Sermon and Sony Michelle and having to start them in some spots. It's amazing.
Yeah. Whew.
Just to have a
It's
whole lineup, you know what I mean? Like,
I
dang.
saw a DJ
but
Dallas
hey,
as the RB1 for a team, and I was like, oh,
Oh,
God.
you
man.
know what? I got some
Yeah.
teams where Cordero Patterson's my RB1. I
Dude,
would
he's an
never have
RB1.
guessed it going into the year.
Whew.
And oh boy, this has been an interesting first half of the season, right?
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
kept us on our toes. We've really had to kind of adapt and overcome some things here. But starting off this week, our first matchup, the Thursday night game, I feel we were talking about before the show. I kind of started off, I was like, is this really the Thursday night game? And then I sat back and I kind of retracted that and I said, you know what? It might not be the best matchup, but there's going to be some fun pieces to watch. So, first game of the week, it's Billy's boys. It's the Jets 2-5 going into Indy, and Billy's Colts are 3-5. I don't think that record's as indicative of as how good the Colts really are. Colts favored by 10.5 points over under a 45.5. Now, obviously, on the Colts side, we have Carson Wentz last week, caught a lot of flack. Some people calling for him to get benched already. I personally think it's a load of crap. I think you're really blowing out of proportion a single interception on what's been a phenomenal year for him, right? So I have, excuse me, I have no issues with him. Jonathan Taylor really waking up here, seeing, kind of like we've said a few times, that early, resurgence. We didn't know if he was going to start off week one strong, but he was strong pretty early this year. Marlon Mack didn't get traded, so he's still there with Naheem Hines behind him. Jack Doyle, secret agent Jack Doyle, made an appearance last week. And then Michael Pittman Jr. really coming into his own. So I'm loving what I'm seeing from him. So really, like we said, kind of the big three, right? Pittman, Taylor, Wentz, killing it in Indy. But on the other side, the Jets, Mike White, 400 plus yards last week with the win. It's pretty impressive stuff, but the more impressive thing to me was Michael Carter, 30 plus points. We talked about these UNC running backs going into the season. Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, they split time in UNC, and I was expecting big things, but I didn't know if it was going to be that big, especially year one. So love what I'm seeing from him. What do you boys think on this matchup?
Well, I'll take Indy and the over. Mike White makes this game weird, but starting with the Colts, the big three, Wentz, Taylor, Pittman, those guys have been awesome lately. Yeah, Wentz had a couple of mistakes, but this guy has legitimately been going in, playing well, putting them in a position to win, and a lot of times he's being let down by other aspects of their team. So he had a couple of mistakes last week. I am cool with it. I'm totally fine with it. I will be jumping on all three of those guys this week. I wouldn't touch a tight end for either one of these teams moving forward. The Colts have some talent, but there's too many of them. And the Jets, just no. Like, Tyler Kroft scored last week. if Mike White continues with Tyler Kroft, maybe you can consider bringing him back. But I've already dropped him in most leagues, and I don't think that Mike White holds that job. I do think it's Wilson's when he comes back. But yeah, this is a fantasy relevant game. This could be high scoring. I like that all three of us have gone on the over, and I'm kind of shocked. Billy, it's your turn to talk. I'm curious about what your pick is, why it's different than ours.
So I'm kind of wavering here. I initially thought under Thursday night, kind of funny, but the 45.5 is actually relatively low. Like the point you made when we were talking off air, Ryan, Mike White slinging around the yard. The Jets have a little hope. Jamison Crowder getting healthy again. That's a guy that can move the ball down the field. He's not necessarily going to be a guy that's going to have 150 yards receiving. However, he is a guy who can get you 7 catches for 85 yards, and that'll move the chains a whole lot and keep them ahead of the stick. So I just think the Jets have a chance to keep this game closer than 11 points, regardless of the outcome. I guess 10.5 points just seems like a very big spread on a short week. And with the Jets really playing a little bit better ball than you expect, Michael Carter going off, he's really only had 2 games this entire season under double-digit fantasy points of PPR scoring. So that's an exciting thing for the Jets to kind of get rolling here. And the Colts can be had a little bit through the air especially. So I think it's just enough to make it interesting. Maybe they kind of reel him in garbage time type of situation. But Jonathan Taylor against the Jets defense this week. The Jets are in for a long one. They are the worst defense against running backs in fantasy, and they are like exponentially worse over the last month than even the second worst team in the NFL. So they're averaging 41 allowed points to running backs per game, and Jonathan Taylor eat that up pretty quick if you let him get loose a couple times. So I do think it's a Jonathan Taylor big day. Michael Pittman getting going, 20-plus points there of his last 4 games. I think he still just kind of continues on that. The way they're using him, it's really just a deep play. He's not the fast guy, but Wentz puts it in the air, and he's making those plays right now. I'm liking the communication. Liking what I see out of the Colts team. They very easily could have beat the Titans and made this division race very interesting. But unfortunately for Tennessee, Derrick Henry going down really gives this Colts team another opportunity for that 2 or 3 games back to not be such a big race. And I do think they get the win. I don't see them really whipping the Jets real hard right now.
I get that.
Yeah. And real quick, I got to back up here a little bit, right? As much as I love this matchup, I got a little excited, talk about Michael Carter, Carson Wentz, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor. We got to back up a little bit. Ryan, I need you to tell us a little bit about St. Jude. Where are we at with St. Jude? Give me some of those high scores because it was an interesting week in some of these leagues.
Yes, it was. We have 2 undefeated teams left. I'll get to both of those in a second. I'm just going to go over the weekly high score person, then the overall high score person. And Peyton Manning, weekly, Maker's Mark 4, overall, Splani 11. Reggie Wayne, weekly, Rush J 75, team name Killer Cardinals. There you are, Rusty. We know you're coming.
Champ.
Yep.
Surgeon right now.
We know you're coming. I'm keeping an eye on you. Overall, we have FFL Guru. CEH this week, Muff Daddy 1. He is also in first place overall. Luke Jokel this week, G to Jesus 519, team name New York Wolfpack. He is also in first place overall. Nuke this week, Rough Riders, the weekly high score of 175.14. And then overall, FF Peacock, team name Josh Allen, a day's work. I can't say that right whenever I try. Josh Allen, a day's work. All right. Sorry, Miles. Von Miller this week, overall high score, RM 25. The high score for the week overall is Jay Millard, team name Bearded Ginges. Famous Jameis this week, high score J Moolah 3, overall Queen Bees. Super Mariota this week, AWH 6172, Monkey Fighting Snakes team name. He is 8-0 and the overall high point of the entire St. Jude Bowl. He's also the leader of that division, obviously. Saquads this week, Nomad 1600, Sir Lancelot, and then overall we have our other undefeated team, CP Bravo 11. Both are 8-0. Let's see how long this goes, boys. And then last division, Killer Kyler this week, Dan Robbins 2021 with a high score. Overall, Edgeheads leading that division. So yeah, it's getting interesting. Technically, most teams are still in it if you can just score enough points. So I'm just trying to get back in it right now. Come on, CMC.
I need my backs back off of IR, and I might have a fighting chance to stay up there. I'm doing okay with points. Just falling back a little bit these last couple.
All right. Well,
hey guys,
there we go.
Take us into
Browns
into
Bengals
that next game.
So interesting matchup. The Ohio Super Bowl, 4-4 Browns visiting the 5-3 surprise 5-3 Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals favored by 2.5. Over under 46.5. That's kind of a fun number. Some drama in Cleveland with OBJ this week. Nick Chubb's really the only Brown I'm too excited to have in any of my lineups. I understand he might be starting other Browns, but I'm looking for other options if I have them. Cincinnati's defense is not very giving to any position from a fantasy standpoint. The Browns, however, allow the 5th most points to quarterbacks. So I'm in on Joe Burrow this week as a QB1. I know a lot of people have him as their QB2. This is a week that if you've got any question marks or an injury, plug him in. He should have a nice day for you. 13th most fantasy points to wide receivers as well. And I think this group, the Bengals group, is just a little bit better than average. So I expect them to be able to really exploit this secondary, who is giving up some decent points. And they're very tough against the running back position. So it really looks like the Bengals, their best bet is to attack through the air. And T. Higgins getting going. I really like him playing this week. The targets have been there over the last couple weeks. Last week, starting to see him get a little bit deeper, 4 catches for 97 yards, and really starting to get behind the defense a little bit with Jamar Chase getting all that attention. And Tyler Boyd is another guy that we know and love, and really kind of the guy that gets forgotten a lot. And this feels like a night where he might really tear the Browns up while they're vulnerable right now with some things in their locker room. But Chase is a must start. Like I said, a nice matchup for Boyd. Definitely a wide receiver 3 or flex option. And I'm going to take the Bengals and the under. I think the Browns might struggle to score, and I don't think the Bengals will really push to really blow them out. I think they'll just control it, play good offense.
Yeah, man, I think you nailed it on pretty much everything there, right? I'm taking the Bengals. I'm taking the over. I think it could get a little tit for tat, right? But aside from that, main guys from the Browns is going to be Nick Chubb. Baker, from my understanding, is playing, but he's beat up. Until I see him playing a little bit healthier and a little bit better football, I'm going to fade him where I can. T. Higgins killing it, Jamar Chase killing it. And like you said, Tyler Boyd, kind of the interesting one there, right? He's had 2 games in PPR format at about 18.5 points, 2 at about 12.5, and the rest were under 7 points. So it's really just boom or bust. Kind of the interesting ones, Pittsburgh and Jacksonville, not the easiest against receivers. 2 of those top 4 games. The others against Chicago and then the Jets, who, obviously the Jets are, oddly enough, they're actually pretty well ranked against receivers. But Cleveland is not. I think you're right. This could be a big game for Boyd. And I think that's where across the board these Bengals are going to have a day. But again, it's Nick Chubb that is going to be kind of fronting that Browns team, trying to keep them in this one.
Yeah, I'm taking Cincy in the over, but I'll explain. There is a caveat there. I think Cincy's going to have their way here. Everybody on that offense to me is startable. They're no-brainers. On the other side, if Donovan Peoples-Jones plays, I think it goes in the over because I don't think that Cleveland has a receiver with that kind of physicality that DPJ can have. He's a much bigger body. No OBJ means if he's playing, he should see a healthy amount of targets. And I think this guy has potential game changer written all over him. So if there's a DPJ sighting, I will take the over for Cincy because I do not think the Browns can keep up all the way, but they can score again. If with Chubb and with DPJ, I think they'll hit the over. Otherwise I'll take the under, but this is an interesting game. And again, Chubb, don't be bashful. Chubb is a beast. It doesn't necessarily matter. So just allow him to do what he does. I know that the Bengals have a pretty tough defense in some places, but it doesn't matter with Chubb. It doesn't matter what defense he's playing. Any week he can go for 200 plus and 2 touchdowns. It's very simple in that way. And that's why I think that they probably hit the over. Y'all have anything else to say on that one before we move on to another one? Tom, I'm seeing your pick now, and I can't wait to hear. All right, we're moving to the Broncos at the Cowboys. The Cowboys are favored by 10, over under 49.5. I'll take Dallas, and I'll take the over. Obviously, if Dak doesn't play, I'll still take Dallas in the over, but that's a way scarier bet, not one I'll have money riding on. If Dak plays, this to me feels like easy money. The Broncos just lost Von Miller. That's a huge locker room blow, along with a huge blow for that defense. Teddy has looked unsteady lately. He's just doing enough to kind of keep the job, but I've been underwhelmed. In fantasy standpoint, he remains like a low-range QB2, mid-range QB2, which is fine for Superflex, but he doesn't get me excited this week, especially against the Cowboys with Diggs over there. Start all the Cowboys. The thing is, if Gallup plays, I'm not sure I'm starting him because I don't know how healthy he is, but that does help the other 2 receivers take a little pressure off. And then Zeke and Pollard should remain good options this week. This is a nice game. I think the over gets hit just because Dallas is going to get 30 plus, and the Broncos can score. They have some talent on the offensive side of the ball. I honestly don't feel scared about starting like Fant or Sutton or Tim Patrick, but I don't necessarily want to start Teddy. And the run game scares me a little bit because I think they'll be behind.
So I like Dallas in the under. Here's why. Dallas has not allowed 24 points or more in all but 3 games. They've only allowed that many points 3 times. The Broncos have not scored 24 points in any of their last 5 outings. And I just feel like this Cowboys defense is really kind of getting going. They do allow some fantasy points, however. I do think it'll be a low-scoring game, kind of that bend but don't break that we hear people talk about. And I'm with you, Ryan. I'm starting all my Cowboys in this matchup. You can't sit any of these guys. Zeke, Pollard, I think gets enough work. He's a very interesting flex play. Right now, we talked about the running back position. So many injuries, so many wild things going on. Bye weeks, there's only 14 games this week, you guys. So there's a lot of guys missing, especially in the running back situation. And Tony Pollard is a pretty quality player to be able to plug into a flex spot, in my opinion. And, of course, anytime if Zeke were to tweak an ankle, miss any time or need a blow, Pollard comes right in, produces as soon as he hits the field. I don't like Dalton Schultz in this matchup. The Broncos are incredibly good against the tight end position. It's kind of been their thing for a few years now. So if you're riding Dalton Schultz, look for another option for tight end. But as far as the receivers, I'm playing all of them. And as deep as things have gotten, Cedric Wilson's not a bad option in the flex spot. He does get some deep shots. This guy could score a touchdown kind of at any time, especially with the attention that Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb get. And I think that if they do get Michael Gallup back, I don't know how much of a role he'll have right now. I am stashing him, anxiously awaiting his return and that hot start week 1. But I do think Cedric Wilson's a guy you can still plug in for another week or 2 until he gets back to full strength. So Dallas in the under for me, just kind of riding the trend of what these teams have been allowing. The Broncos aren't scoring a lot of points.
So I know you guys went through the Cowboys here, right? Oh, I'm not going to harp on them, like you said. Pretty much start just about everybody. I think you're right, though, except for Jarwin Billy. Do have some concerns about him against this defense. But the Broncos, right? I know it seems crazy. I'm picking the Broncos and the over, right? And I'm not saying that the Broncos are going to win, but it's a 10-point spread. I think they could stay within 10 of the Cowboys, and here's why. I see the Cowboys overlooking this game with how poorly the Broncos have been playing. I understand Von Miller being gone. That is a big loss. You're right, Ryan. But I still think that there are enough veterans in that locker room that you can kind of continue on with it, right? Obviously, just on defense alone, Kyle Fuller, Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons, just to name a few of the guys that are, veterans. And it goes on from there. On the offensive side, Teddy is a veteran. He can kind of help carry a team, whether it's on the field or not is a different story. They have some experience, right? I don't think that's the end all be all, just losing Von Miller. So I think that the Cowboys looking past them, if Fant does play, obviously he's a must play. He's a top tight end in the league. But if he doesn't, I'm still not that concerned because Albert Okwuegbunam is physically, I would say, very close to as capable as Noah Fant. I don't think he's quite as rounded as a tight end, but he has great physical attributes and he has the ability to play at a high level. He's simply a backup on a team behind one of the top 5-ish tight ends in the league, right? I think we would say Noah Fant's probably around that 5 mark.
I think Noah Fant may miss the game due to the COVID-19 list, so it would be a big opportunity for Albert O, who has looked very good, Tom. I'm with you on that.
Exactly.
Yeah, started.
Drew Lock's roommate, this guy was incredibly productive at the University of Missouri, and they brought him there thinking Locke was going to be the guy. He would play some ball. They probably thought a lot of 2 tight end sets, and the guy's enormous and freakishly athletic for his size.
Exactly. So I'm big on Albert O this week, assuming Fant does miss the game. And then at the receivers, like you said, Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy is back, guys. I know, obviously, coming off of an injury, you might not have wanted to start him immediately. But personally, I'm not too worried about that. And again, I think with a Cowboys offense defense that could overlook this and start looking to the following week, I mean, his first game back, it's nothing crazy, but 4 for 4 with 39 yards against the Washington defense that was kind of harassing Teddy Bridgewater throughout the game. So I think that knowing he's healthy and knowing he can go, I think we'll see a much bigger impact from Jerry Jeudy this week as well.
Yeah, I get it, Tom. I just can't envision the Broncos staying within 10. Like the Cowboys are going to
be. I think it's going to be somewhere around a 23 to 30 or so. It's not going to be super close, but it's just within that 10-point mark, I think.
All right, I get it. Like I said, it makes sense. I like Alberto this week for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But moving on here, a little bit of an uglier matchup. We have 2 1-7 teams. We have the Houston Texans going into Miami to face the Dolphins, who are favored by 6.5 points, over under of 46. I mean, there's not a lot about this game that gets me excited personally. Is Davis Mills starting this week? I'm not even sure, to be honest.
Looking like it's Tyrod. So as of right now, I would say it's Tyrod.
In that sense, it definitely helps the Texans. But I will say I am taking the Texans on the spread for sure. I'm also taking the under. I know 46 not a massive line, but as we've talked about, Tua not doing it for me. The only person I really want from the Dolphins is Gesicki. And then on the Texans, Brandon Cooks.
Always.
Which, by the way, I have to bring this up. Obviously, trade deadline passed yesterday, and I still cannot understand. Maybe one of you guys can explain it. How do the Texans want to build around a 28-year-old wide receiver with 5 known concussions, and like that? He's only going to get slower. He was never like a speedster. He's going to be like Larry Fitzgerald speed out there, but he's not Larry Fitzgerald good in like 2 more years.
I think they're trying to ride him into still selling tickets and being able to score a respectable amount of points once in a while.
Yeah, Cooks is virtually matchup proof, and this is a super sweet matchup. I'll take Houston, and I'll take the over. I don't think either one of these teams are going to be able to stop each other. Tyrod makes this offense more dynamic. I can see a big week this week for Nico Collins. The Texans can't really run the ball, so it's going to be the Cooks and Collins show, in my opinion, with Tyrod being a very startable quarterback this week if he plays for the ground game ability, and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. On the other side of the ball, it's Gesicki time. This is going to be a huge game for him. I hate Tua so much, but at the very least, he does seem to know what he has. I love Waddle in this game, and I think Gaskin could contribute in a big way as well. But it's Gesicki and Waddle who I'm after. I'm not touching Tua. This is a fantasy gold mine if you can get the guys like the Gesicki and Cooks. Those 2 guys could win you this week just because this game is going to be so weird and ugly. And those 2 guys are clearly kind of the most with Waddle as well, I guess. And again, throw in Nico Collins. Those 4 options to me are big options this week. I wouldn't stack this game too much, although stacking those 4 players would be a sneaky little way to win a tournament because people are not going to look at that and think high scoring. But the over-under is 46. That's not that low. I'm looking around and I see lower ones all over the place. This game could get high scoring. I'm definitely on the over here from that perspective because I don't think these guys can stop anybody. Little hidden gem this week with the Texans Dolphins. Could be a lot of scoring going on.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Ryan. I want every piece of this I can get. I want Nico, Brandon Cooks, David Johnson, even worth a look if you're going deep enough. On the opposite side of the ball, I want all the Dolphins. Give me Gesicki, Gaskin. If Will Fuller was playing, I'm starting him. Devontae Parker had a nice showing last week. I think that helps Tua out quite a bit. Devontae Parker, an extremely talented player, but it's just been so hit or miss that we kind of forget how good this guy is. Both of these teams in the bottom 6 worst fantasy points allowed to every single fantasy relevant position. Give me these guys. I think this is going to be a shootout, and I'm hoping you're right about Tyrod playing. If Tyrod plays, Brandon Cooks is in for a monster afternoon. I just think the Dolphins are a little bit more well-built as far as the bones of the team, the structure of the team. I think they edge the Texans out. But I think this turns into, like you said, Ryan, the gem of the weekend. This could be some really exciting football. I imagine if you're watching football, there's going to be a lot of cut-in updates of big plays in this game. And these organizations deal with each other a lot. A lot of trade talk. They've made some big trades here in the recent time. So I think there's a lot more fun to be had in this matchup than meets the eye. You think 2-1-7 teams not that fun? I don't know. I see it happening.
By the way, Nico Collins in DFS is $3,600.
Boom. Yes.
That's if he puts up, that's a steal. Gesicki only 4,900, Waddle 5,600, and Brandon Cooks 6,100, and Gaskin 5,800. By the way,
golly,
there is a lot like there.
There is going to be a DFS lineup in my future that has all those guys in it.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw Devontae Parker in there too because somehow this is going to be a high scoring game. Holy cow! I think this is the defenses are terrible.
They are abysmal. I cannot believe the Dolphins defense, the fall from grace. It's amazing.
Agreed.
So another fun matchup.
Albert Okwuegbunam, 2,600.
Ooh.
Man, these are tournament plays, every one of them.
Wow.
I'm going to get a DFS article out this week.
Hell yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, guys, our next matchup, we got the 3-4 Falcons heading to the Saints at 5-2. Saints favored by 6 over under 42. An odd matchup to me, a lot going on in this game. Falcons without Ridley. Saints just lost a quarterback in Jameis Winston, and both teams incredibly thin at the wide receiver position as far as impactful wide receivers go. Saints are allowing the most fantasy points to wide receivers, 9th most to quarterbacks. In the right situation, I would start Matt Ryan and Cordero Patterson. You're definitely playing. That guy's a top 10 asset as a wide receiver and a running back this season. Thank you, Sleeper, for the dual eligibility. It's really bailed me out in some really sticky spots here. But as far as the Falcons go, outside of Cordero, I'm probably not touching him. Pitts, you're likely starting. Temper expectations a bit. I just don't see him having a humongous day that they can't handle when he really plays wide receiver. And Lattimore really does his best work on big-bodied, big receiving threats. So from the Saints standpoint, Kamara it is. And I'm not sure what to expect from him with the current quarterback situation. It's just abysmal, really. So I'm taking Falcons in the over. I think somehow, some way, these teams start scoring some points. These teams know each other very well. And the NFC South is a very odd division where, the bottom feeders tend to beat up on the top teams the next season. It's a very odd situation. Blood in the water for the Saints. I think the Falcons take advantage.
Yeah, this is definitely a kind of an odd matchup. With the Saints, I mean, it sounds like even if Taysom's healthy, Trevor Siemian's the guy they want to go with. And I saw an interesting post on Twitter. Somebody was saying that Taysom Hill is basically a slightly more accurate Jalen Hurts. I think that this is the perfect example where those quarterbacks, even while they're exciting, right, they have the mobility and, it's fun to watch at times. And sure, Jalen Hurts is a top fantasy quarterback. Long-term for an actual NFL team, they're going to start looking elsewhere because it doesn't necessarily win you games, right? So seeing them possibly benching Taysom Hill kind of, to me, that starts to really set into me that the Eagles likely don't hold on to a guy like Jalen Hurts if they don't see improvement later this season, which is possible. So in this one, I'm not touching anybody starting at quarterback for the Saints. I will go in on Alvin Kamara because I think he's just going to get fed the ball. Even Mark Ingram could get some touches. It's not like he's unfamiliar with the offense. Obviously just getting traded there. And then, beyond that, I don't really trust Traquan Smith or Marquez Callaway or Deontay Harris for that matter. They're not really, strong receivers, especially when you don't know who quarterback is going to be. And your most likely bet is Trevor Siemian. On the Falcons, on the other hand, to me, it is Matt Ryan, Cordero Patterson, and Kyle Pitts. Obviously, with Calvin Ridley being away from football for a while, definitely glad to see he's taking care of that. Always hate to see it, but glad he's dealing with himself first instead of football. I don't know that I trust Russell Gage or Olmid Zacchaeus or any of those guys as a number one for them currently. I think they're just going to end up feeding Patterson and Pitts because what else are you going to do?
Yeah, so I have another caveat here. I'll take New Orleans with the over if it's Taysom Hill starting, and I'll take Atlanta with the over if it's not. This game won't be a blowout either way, I don't think. But Taysom has won in the past when he has started. He is dynamic. And like somebody was saying, he is a more accurate version, not a heavily accurate guy, but a more accurate version. So I like him in real life and in fantasy. I think Taysom is a sneaky start this week as well, if he starts. I am actually going to say I'm about Traquan Smith too. Atlanta cannot stop the pass. He's a guy that he gets those big plays a lot. I'm not sure if he has all of his athleticism after all these injuries, but there's not a whole lot of other options there. And I saw some stuff from Traquan last week. I was like, hey, there's some flashes of what I remember seeing before you got hurt, like the 16th time. So on that side of the ball, those are the two. I'm a little nervous about Kamara, to be fair. Like, just because Taysom, now if it's Simeon starting, fire away on Kamara for me. But if it's Taysom, he does a lot of the same stuff that Kamara does, and it scares me. And the goal line looks likely go on those zone reads. They likely go to Taysom Hill. He likely keeps and runs, and that's really scares me in the red zone. On the other side, Cordero Patterson has been a revelation. Continue to start him. He's matchup proof, in my opinion, because he can put him all over the field. And then Pitts, I know he had a tough week last week, but he had 6 targets. He's going to be able to push through this stuff. I'm expecting it to happen this week. So I can see this being an over period. Pitts should have a better game. I know that the Saints do have a good defense, especially in like certain areas. And then Lattimore, that's the wide receiver one. He's going to be on him. But I expect Pitts to overcome that. If Matt Ryan can remain accurate, there's not a lot you can do against that guy, even if you cover him well. It's really impressive. They need to get back to that. Last week, Carolina tried to take them out of that, and not having Ridley hurts them in a big way. So they need to find a way to do this without Ridley, and I think they do start to do that this week. So this should be a kind of a fun game, but it's not a game I'll be targeting heavily because I'm not 100% certain where everything comes from. But again, Patterson and Pitts, give him to me. Same with Taysom. If he starts, I think he's a fantasy gold. He just might crap on everybody else on that team. Which brings us to our next game. Raiders -3 at the Giants. The over-under 46. So, again, man, I got a lot of caveats. But again, this is where I'm going to be betting when I get this information. I got the Giants in the over. Unless Saquon doesn't play again, then I'll take Vegas in the under. The Giants offense is so close. I know they're missing so many guys and all these injuries, but they are so close. Every week I can see like they want to break out. Daniel Jones is good enough. He makes some boneheaded decisions, but he's dynamic in so many other ways, and he's still young. If Tony plays and healthy, I'm all over it. Evan Ingram looks like a viable starting tight end now. Again, Saquon, but if Saquon doesn't play, I'm starting Devontae Booker. That guy is a serviceable backup. He's going to get his numbers. He's not Saquon. But, man, if they have Saquon, this whole entire offense looks so different. On the other side of the ball, losing Ruggs is not good for this entire offense. It takes the top off. They should probably go after Deshaun Jackson or John Ross for the Giants no, too late for John Ross. But they have some problems. They need that speedster over the top to open things up down low. You might see a big game from Kenyon Drake because they don't have a lot of ways to get the offense going. So, to me, Drake makes a lot of sense with or without Jacobs because he's going to be involved in the passing game. Waller, I'm a little nervous about lately, and I'm going to kind of stay off of him just for a second. I mean, obviously, you start him in your regular, but I'm not touching him in DFS until I can see Waller of old because it's been disturbing. But without Ruggs, a guy I do want to start is Bryan Edwards. So Bryan Edwards on this side of the ball with Kenyon Drake. And then for the Giants, Daniel Jones makes a lot of sense. God, his rushing potential is still always there. Saquon if he plays. If he doesn't play, give me some Kadarius Toney and Evan Ingram. If he does play, give me those guys too. This is a tricky game. We're going to need more information from me before I feel comfortable doing anything about it.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I'm way in on Kenny Drake this week. The Giants allow the 7th most points to running backs. And I just like the way they've started using Kenyon Drake with this new offense since John Gruden left the team. And Kenny Drake was a big part of kind of the catalyst, that utility player that kind of, ran the ball, caught some passes. They did a lot of different things with him. He's a big guy, and he is very skilled. So I think it's just a matter of time before, in this climate, this running back climate in fantasy football this year, before he becomes a really viable starter, RB2 range flex guy for you. I like the Giants and the under in this game. Giants, it's just really hard to pick out which receivers you want to play. Keep your eyes on the injuries, I guess, would be the biggest thing you got to do with this New York Giants team. But anybody in this game that I have that's, I'm looking to start, there's no reason I'm shying away from them in these matchups. Both defenses relatively mediocre everywhere else, few weak spots. The Raiders, second worst team against tight ends. So Evan Ingram likely in for a decent day if you're leaning on him somewhere in your lineups. But give me the Giants and the under. Giants playing really good football on defense, especially holding the Chiefs to 20 points last week. The Raiders' situation is not having Ruggs. I think it will be a little bit of a struggle for them to really get down the field and score a lot of points. On short notice, losing a big key piece like that. So I think the Giants might get some momentum going, and I like them a little bit more, obviously, with Saquon potentially playing. I think they really whipped the Raiders' ass, to be honest, if Saquon comes back, because not a lot of tape on these guys with Saquon in the backfield. So you key on him, and Daniel Jones is playing better football than we think right now.
So I think you're definitely right. If Saquon is back, that is huge for them. But the issue I'm seeing with that is, if I'm not mistaken, even though he tested positive and then negative for COVID, they put him onto the reserve COVID list, which I don't know. I guess you need a second negative. So I guess tomorrow, they could theoretically pull him off of it. I just didn't expect them to put him on that list if he already had a negative test. I kind of figured they would just, okay, let's see what happens. I don't know. A little bit concerning, but not massively. Obviously, losing Ruggs is huge. I think you're right. You do want to try and find somebody. Deshaun Jackson did get waived by the Rams. So, hey, maybe you go and sign him. But I think at the end of the day, what's that?
For 2 games.
Yeah, exactly. For 2 games. I mean, the guy has endless. I think it was 14 leg injuries is what I counted in his career. And that's just what's on paper. Like, that's just what's actually tracked, right? He was on the injury report for. So, but if you really need that over the top guy, sure. But I think that they do still have some pieces. So obviously Hunter Renfrow, the 87th year senior, he's playing at a decent level, right? He's very startable in fantasy, at least as a flex. I might not want him as my wide receiver 1, but you can put him in with pretty good confidence, and especially without Ruggs, it's probably going to be an extra target or 2 for him. And then Bryan Edwards, somebody that I actually have on a taxi squad or 2 even, just because he was so young going into the season, I wasn't sure what his position would be on this team. He has 3 games over 11 points in PPR leagues. So it's a little hit or miss. One was about 8 points. So, he needs more volume to really become a consistent guy. But if you're really looking for somebody, Bryan Edwards is somebody that without Ruggs, I wouldn't be opposed to starting, just based on that volume is going to have to go somewhere, right? And I would say I doubt it goes to Zay Jones over Bryan Edwards. Josh Jacobs, I think, is going to run all over this Giants defense. I know the Giants have been pretty decent, but I think Josh Jacobs has a big game. Giants, on the other hand, if Saquon is out, it's definitely still going to hurt them. They're playing okay football without him, but it's not great. Daniel Jones is going to throw a bit, probably. But at the end of the day, I think that both teams, if Saquon's not playing, they're probably just going to kind of be running over and over. I don't think it's anything too crazy. So I'm taking the Giants and the under, strictly because the Raiders are kind of a mess right now. But that takes us into matchup of 4-4 teams. The Patriots going into Carolina. Patriots favored by 3.5. I'm taking the Panthers and the under, actually. I think the Panthers a bit, the Patriots have been rolling a lot lately. I don't think that necessarily stops, but I think these defenses kind of show up to each other and shut each other down a bit. Even if McCaffrey plays, I see this being a little bit more of a comeback game for him, where he's trying to get back into the swing of things. And it sounds like PJ Walker might be starting for Carolina. I'm hearing some inklings. I don't love that, so I don't think they're going to be scoring huge points, but I think that the Panthers defense is ready to step up. Stephon Gilmore, if I'm not mistaken, has been activated, or at least practice activated, so he should be ready to go this week. So I think that having, Stephon Gilmore, Dante Jackson, AJ Bouye out there, they can definitely shut down Mac Jones a little bit, especially considering Gilmore was just up there with him for the last, few months. So personally, on the Panthers, I do like still Tommy Tremble. It's a low floor option, obviously, but he's poised to have some big games, especially if you have a guy like PJ Walker. I think he's going to be ready to dump it off. Tommy Tremble can do that for you. DJ Moore, I do like better than Robbie Anderson, just because I think, again, if it's PJ Walker, he's probably not taking these deep shots. They're probably trying to get the ball out of his hand pretty quick. For the Patriots, Mac Jones, I think, has a fairly safe floor. Aside from that, I mean, you guys tell me on running back. It's been a little bit of a mess to me for them this last few weeks.
Man, for me, Damian Harris is the guy I want to play this week. They have been running the offense through him. The Panthers, yes, their defense is good, and I'm taking Pats in the over. I love that I'm the only one in the over here, but if you look at what the Patriots have done the last 3 weeks, they've scored a lot of points against solid defenses too. I mean, none as good as the Panthers. The thing is, Mac Jones is very accurate, and they can run the ball with quite effectively. When you have that combination and then the defense they have now, if CMC comes back and is effective, it makes me a little nervous, but I'm still leaning the Patriots. They just seem to be heating up. They're beating teams I'm not expecting them to beat, like the Chargers last week. That was shocking. I did not see that coming at all, but the Patriots played a pretty good game. Belichick is also the master at eliminating one player. So if CMC does play, this is not the week that I'm, oh my goodness, CMC RB1. I mean, I'm still starting that guy, don't get me wrong, but this is not necessarily the week where he's the RB1 guy in the conversation. Yeah, I like DJ Moore just because he's going to get his catches. Nobody else really on the Panthers, though. Walker or Darnold or whatever, I don't care who it is. It hasn't looked good. I need to see a healthy CMC and a better matchup for me to start getting back on the Panthers again. Give me the Patriots and give me mostly Damian Harris because that guy has been otherworldly lately.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Ryan. I love Damian Harris. I actually just picked him up in a work league. Someone had to drop him because of a situation. Plugged him in last week, or the week before, I guess, went off for me. Decent week last week. Had a nice touchdown run that got called back, too. So don't let the 14 points underwhelm you. He did have a well over 20-point fantasy day. Just became one of those situations where he got called back. But definitely offense running through him. And they're just really playing good football. And I feel like that defense is going to be way too much for either one of Sam Darnold or Philip Walker to really handle. So that's why I think the Panthers are going to struggle in this game. I've got the Pats and the under. I think the Patriots are warming up. They're playing good defense, and this kid at quarterback is growing quickly, you guys. I told you last week, I really had a feeling that they might knock the Chargers off, and they did. And, hey, guess what? We're getting to that time of year where the Patriots get it figured out and they stop losing ball games. I think Mac Jones is a good enough quarterback with just enough supporting cast and run game. Between Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevens, they're getting the run game going effectively to help Mac Jones out. So I think this might be pretty ugly for the Panthers. I think it stays under 41, but I'm thinking like a 27-10 or 24-10 ball game. But I do think the Patriots will have to work for their points. This Panthers defense is very good. Mac Jones is young. They're going to throw some stuff at him.
There's another thing to consider, and I just thought about this. It's a revenge game for the Patriots on Gilmore, not Absolutely. For Gilmore on the Patriots. The Patriots are going to smoke him. Like, because he didn't play for them really, and then they moved him, so they didn't get him. It's not like he's mad at the Pats. They moved it. He's gone. So It's a revenge game for the Patriots against Gilmore.
Absolutely. So, all right, our next matchup, pretty fun game. We've got the 5-2 Buffalo Bills favored by 14.5, over under 48.5, heading south to Jacksonville to take on the 1-6 Jaguars. Jags are in big trouble, you guys. They're allowing all kinds of fantasy points to every position, and the Bills are not. J-Rob is the only Jaguar I'm really considering playing, just the respect that I have for him at the position. If he were to get enough carries, he could be very viable. However, temper your expectations. I don't see him having a 25, 30-point fantasy day going off against these Buffalo Bills. If you get 14 or 17, that's a pretty solid day against this defense. On the other side of the coin, I'm playing all the Bills, and I'm sorry about my Manny Sanders take last week. Went out and goose-egged after I said this guy might be a league winner, but, hey, the production has been there. The target share has been there as well, and that's the biggest thing, the opportunity. It's not like he's catching 2 balls and one of them's an 80-yard touchdown, kind of fluffing up some fantasy points. This guy's been targeted quite a bit in this offense and really getting a decent amount of work. So I'll double down on that bet. And I think he gets back involved this week. I definitely think Manny Sanders is a guy you can start with confidence against this Jacksonville defense. I think he gets back involved, like I said. So I'm going to take the Bills and the under. I don't think the Jags score very many points, and I don't think the Bills are going to be real anxious to leave their big dogs in very long. They'll make quick work of these guys and let some young guys go in and end the day. Zach Moss, probably a really good play. Singletary, too. I bet they do a lot of running the ball in the second half.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. I do love the Bills running backs in this. Yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier this year. A lot of the places I have one of them, I end up having both of them just because when I brought them in, I wasn't sure who was going to be the guy, right? This year, it's definitely been Moss, it seems, but Singletary putting up decent numbers in some matchups. I think this is going to be one of those ones. Jaguars are not the team. They're not the team. And even Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's not playing to the level I think a lot of people expected him to. At least to me, I feel like his play is okay. I get it's the Jaguars that we're talking about. But where was it here? I mean, over the last few games, his best game was against Houston, and then next best against Tennessee. And there's a significant drop off from that. A lot of interceptions, not that many touchdowns. And I get, again, it's the Jaguars. There's only so much you can realistically do on that team. But hey, Gardner Minshew did it for a while. So,
hey, real quick, guys. Hollywood had a question about Dallas or Rams defense this weekend. I like Dallas's defense. I think Noah Fant missing from that defense or that offense in Denver, as well as their kind of inability to really run the ball too terribly effectively. Splitting time with Javonte and I would go Dallas here. Tennessee scares me a little bit because even without Derrick Henry, that team has some real potential to light you up pretty good.
Yeah, I'm jaded because of my AJB love, but I would lean Dallas because of that. Like, I don't see anything that is super scary with Denver as far as their offense. You're not going to get a crazy offensive game. I think we all agree it's not going to be like a lot of points scored for Denver. On the other side of the ball, Tennessee has proven against a Bills defense that is excellent. Now, yes, that's with Henry, but if they can run the ball at all, AJB should. And I was talking about this before the show. I think they're going to try to put Jalen Ramsey on AJB, and it's not going to matter. I think that the Rams are in for some problems. Tannehill's a mobile quarterback, so I would lean Dallas this week.
I can see Jalen Ramsey having a little meltdown because AJB is going to be extremely physical, and Ramsey is not going to like it.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a different animal.
I agree.
Number 11, man.
Yeah. I also don't disagree, by the way. I think I would lean Dallas's defense, but I think you could get surprised. I think it's the safer play, though.
Yeah. Tom, were you good with your Bills and Jags?
Yeah, I mean, hey, start your Bills, bench your Jags. That's pretty much the end of it.
Yeah, except for like Billy said, except for J-Rob, I'm not going to harp into that too much. I also think Buffalo in the over, just because I think this might be a get right. Bills did not look good last week for the whole first half of that game. So I could see them trying to make this a statement game and getting close to that over-under on their own. If Robinson plays, they at least should find ways to put points on the board. I have seen some improvement in that offense, but the Bills are going to shut them down pretty good. I definitely feel comfortable with the Bills with that spread. I'm semi-confident with the over. I get why you said the under, though, because they could just blitz this team into oblivion and then run the ball. It does seem to me like Singletary is the option they use more in the middle, between the 20s, and then anywhere in the red zone, Moss comes in to finish. And that's why I think they both remain viable. They both have their distinct roles. You don't want them as your RB1, but your RB2 flex, especially with the running back situation, those guys are viable. More than viable, really, when you look at the other stuff you could be putting in there. So for me, I will be leaning Josh Allen. This has got to be a get-right game for them. This is an easy opponent, and they did not look good last week against an easy opponent. At halftime, I was going, oh, my God. But thankfully, they turned it on. They need Dawson Knox back, which brings me to 1 point. Like, I'm starting all my Bills, but a guy that I will start without Knox, this will be the third week in a row he's not had Knox, and Gabriel Davis has been involved in the offense in the weeks that Knox has not been there. So as a flyer play, if you're lacking serious depth, Gabe Davis is an option. at least until Knox returns. And I do like Emmanuel Sanders. Like you said, this is going to be a big week for the entire offense to get back on track. So play all your Bills. Except for I wouldn't go too heavy in Tommy Sweeney because I do think Gabe Davis gets those looks that Knox was getting. Okay. Moving on to what I think is going to be an exciting and another get-right game. Vikings at Ravens. Ravens favored by 6, over under a 49.5. Give me the Ravens. Give me the over. Lamar Jackson has been playing his best football up until probably last week was a little bit of, hey, Lamar, what happened? But they were kind of riding high. They were first in the AFC. I think there was a confluence of things that happened. I expect the Ravens to obliterate the Vikings this week. Now, I do think the Vikings can score on them, so I'm still starting on my Vikings. But this over-under for me is going to get blown way up and over the 49.5. I think it's a pretty low over-under for what I expect the Ravens to be doing. Hollywood Brown, huge play. Mark Andrews, huge play. Lamar Jackson, huge play. All of your Ravens, play them. I'm still those daggum running backs drive me crazy. I wish we could know which one was going to be the guy because they'd be a play, but I'm not going to risk it. There's safer running backs this week. Look on the other side of the ball. I do think Cook's going to get his. Jefferson has been concerning me a little bit just because it seems like defenses are keying on him more, but he's good enough where that shouldn't matter if they can just figure out ways to get him in the open field. But really, I'm starting everybody in this, and I think the over-under is too low.
Yeah, I like the over in this game as well. I'm kind of going back and forth about the spread here, so maybe I'll talk myself into it as I kind of talk through this situation. Vikings, I think, can score points on the Ravens. The Ravens have allowed the 7th most fantasy points to quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks, and Kirk Cousins kind of had an off day. We know how that kind of goes. He kind of comes back with a vengeance, and he'll light somebody up when you least expect it, and really kind of he does at times when you do expect it. So kind of lines up perfect for Kirk Cousins to kind of get back on track. Dalvin Cook, another guy, has been relatively quiet after the injury. I think it's a big Dalvin Cook game trying to control the ball against this Ravens team, keep Lamar Jackson off the field. I like Hollywood Brown in this matchup a lot. I like Mark Andrews as well. I think the Vikings and Ravens score a lot of points. Ultimately, I think the Ravens do kind of pull ahead. So give me the Ravens and way over the 49.5.
Oh, yeah.
Here comes Tom.
It's Lamar, man. You know.
I get it.
I don't know. At the end of the day, I think the Vikings are going to keep this a little closer, right? I'm going Vikings in the under. Not that the Vikings will win it, but I think this could really come down to like a field goal at the end of this game or a game-winning touchdown. I think at the end of the day, you're going to see Lamar run enough to beat the Vikings. Note I didn't say throw because I just don't think he will. Like he'll throw enough for some of these guys to become viable, but not to the point that I really want to have a ton of them. I think it's Marquise Brown and maybe Mark Andrews. That's about it for me. Like you said, the running backs, I don't want to touch just because I don't know who it is. Who's going to be the guy? I have Le'Veon Bell on a bench or two. I would never put him in because I don't have faith in any of them.
Miss you, JK.
Yeah, miss JK. Which, by the way, JK Dobbins, incredibly inefficient this year. When you're looking at his ability to force missed tackles and create yardage after hits, just saying, was not a good year for him before the injury. But the Vikings, on the other hand, I think you're right. Justin Jefferson is good enough to beat some of the extra coverage he's getting. KJ Osborne getting some looks. Definitely somebody I'm a little bit more intrigued in, at least. Amir Smith-Marset down there as well, but again, it's kind of who's that receiver 3 for him. Kirk Cousins, he has a generally safe floor, right? Last week was definitely an off week for him, I think, but usually I'm pretty confident starting Kirk Cousins. He's going to be, especially in a super flex league, he's a very good second quarterback to have on your team.
Yeah.
But that takes us into Chargers, Eagles. Chargers are 4-3, favored by 1.5 points in Philly. The Eagles also 3-5 after a trouncing of the Lions last week. Is that a strong enough word?
Yeah.
Over under 50 points. At the end of the day, I think that game showed one thing, and that's that Jalen Hurts is not the guy for the Eagles. 14 attempts, 9 completions for 103 yards. Not very impressive, right? Yes, they won 44-6, I think, 44-3, 44-6, something like that. I forget. But regardless, he didn't have a single touchdown on the ground or in the air. It was 4 rushing touchdowns split between Miles Sanders, or excuse me, not Miles Sanders. He was injured. Between Boston Scott and Jordan Howard.
Makes no sense.
Kenny Gainwell, I don't understand what happened to Gainwell.
So one of the main reasons I tend to lay off of Eagles running backs is because they are so hot and cold as a team with them every year, and I just can't deal with that. And it doesn't matter who the head coach is. I think the problem's Howie. I think we've established that. But like I said, it's very hot and cold, and I just can't deal with the inconsistency. When Sanders is back, I'll still play him here and there, but in DFS or anything, I don't really trust him enough to play him. And it's not because of his ability. It's not because of any of these backs' abilities. It's because I don't know what the Eagles' offense looks like. And then even if they pound the ball, they're pissed off at somebody for the day. So honestly, with the Eagles, aside from Goddard and even Hurts, I guess, just from a fantasy perspective, aside from last week, has been good. But this week, I would hesitate to start him if you have somebody else, because if Nick Sirianni realizes he can just ground and pound, which that offensive line is good at, you might not see a lot of Hurts going forward. On the other hand, the Chargers, Justin Herbert, QB, is he still QB1? I forget. He had a drop down last week, had a rough week last week. So I think this could be a bounce back game for him. I'm going Chargers in the over simply because the Chargers are going to rack up some points, probably 30 or so. And then Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are probably going to try and make a comeback and get within about 10 points in the fourth quarter and lose.
They're definitely going to lose. I got the Chargers in the over as well. Another statement game. There's no reason they should have lost to the Patriots. This is one of the best teams in the league when they're on all cylinders. Offensively, defensively, they're but offensively, this team has so many weapons. I am going to be shocked if the Chargers lose this, or if this is even close, really. I want every single Charger, but especially Eckler. The Eagles cannot stop running backs, especially pass-catching running backs. And then I'm a little concerned about which receiver Slay is on, but in reality, that offense, the way it is, everybody should be fine. On the other side, I'm going to play Hurts just because of the fantasy implications and the rushing, and I think they're going to be behind, and they're going to have to try to throw, and they do have those deep threats, but he's going to be running a lot and scrambling a lot, and that's why I would play him, and they're going to try to be catching up. But I agree with you, Tom. He is not good in NFL terms. He does remain viable in fantasy terms, and I think this could be a game for him, but I'm not playing anybody else for the Eagles. Maybe Goddard.
Yeah, I'm definitely starting Goddard. I like the matchup against this Chargers defense, and Goddard with Ertz out of the way is just he gets an absurd amount of usage for the tight end position. So opportunities king, man. So I'm right on Goddard. Have been all year, and really, had a decent week. 13 points PPR scoring last week. That's pretty good for a tight end, and that I like this matchup a little bit better. I am going to take the Chargers in the under. Here's why. I don't know if the Eagles are really able to score a ton of points against this Chargers defense. Not that they're so fantastic, but it really seems like running the ball is the way that they're going to have to attack this defense and score points. And I really just question their consistency to be able to really rely on the rushing attack 2 whole games in a row. 1 whole game in a row. Already, I'm sure Tom has you sitting back in your seat wondering what in the hell's going on. Yeah, Miles Sanders goes down and then we start running the ball. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Feels like kind of a fluky thing last week. The Lions are pathetic bad. This Chargers team is a much more quality opponent. However, I don't think the Eagles are just going to completely, take a crap, but I just feel like the Chargers got to get right. They lost one to the Patriots, a game that you would have liked to see them win in this growth, and might have just gotten out coached. So I'm going to take the Chargers in the under. I don't think either team scores a whole hell of a lot of points. 50 is a little bit on the high side. Feels like a little bit of bait to me. Anything else, Tom?
I don't know. I just cried a little bit. Actually, no. I did have to bring this up. Gardner Minshew sighting.
Yes.
Woo!
Yes.
Gardner Minshew sighting. 2 for 2 with 9 yards. Let's go.
I'm ready for some more Minshew.
I was disappointed they didn't give him more opportunity to throw the ball, but I get it. You were up 40-something. didn't matter. But loved Minshew. And actually, I will say, I saw him get under pressure, dump the ball off with a sidearm. That was like a Patrick. If that was Patrick Mahomes, ESPN would have
That's a
just
highlight.
gone, right?
So,
Minshew, guys.
speaking of Patrick Mahomes, the next matchup, you guys have got the 7-1 Packers traveling to Arrowhead to visit the Chiefs 4-4, who beat the Giants by the skin of their teeth. I had $50 on the Giants money line just for fun. Thought the Chiefs were reeling a little bit harder, so that was a little bit of fun last week. Chiefs favored by 7.5, over under of 48. No Aaron Rodgers for the Pack, and I don't think it matters, you guys. I think this team can ride A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones kind of like they did last week. A.J. Dillon's starting to get double-digit carries in more games than he is at you guys, and this guy looks to be a pretty special player. And I think just Jordan Love's going to get an opportunity to maybe air it out a little bit against the defense that's really giving up whatever the hell you want to do to him right now, you guys. And I think A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, that combination is enough to be able to keep the Chiefs on their heels. And the Chiefs offense really, two-man under is slowing them down. There's a lot bigger problems than just, they can't figure out how to run an offense against man coverage with two deep safeties. Come on, that's high school stuff. There's a whole lot more going on here, guys. Saw a couple things, Mahomes bailing out of the pocket with a tight end or a running back right in the middle of the field wide open, but he's not looking downfield when he's scrambling anymore. He's one read looking for a deep shot. Andy Reid's just got to reel this guy in. But at the same time, any minute these guys catch fire, and it's a really big problem for the rest of the league. But I feel like the Packers are getting them at the right time. Momentum beating the Cardinals last week without Devontae Adams. Pretty interesting situation. This is a good Packer team, you guys. I'll take them to pull off the upset and at least cover the spread, 8 points they have to lose by an Arrowhead. And I'm going to take the over. So Pack in the over. I think the Chiefs start scoring some points. Otherwise, they're going to get left.
Yeah, it's definitely I don't know. I don't know what to think of the Chiefs. I think that this is kind of where Eric Bieniemy not leaving can come in handy, right? Because Andy Reid through the years has been a smart guy. He's able to kind of hand off the play calling and say, hey, you take over. I'm off of it. I think Billy might have been bringing that up last week, right? And that really is true. And I'm hoping that we see that going forward, especially against a Packers team that you lost Aaron Rodgers. That's a massive hit to this team. He's the guy that does it with it doesn't matter who's around him, right? Not having him on the field is going to be massive. Definitely still tough to stop Aaron Jones and Saquon's 2.0 in A.J. Dillon. But I think that Jordan Love could be one of the biggest boom or bust plays at quarterback this week. Right? I think if they start off early running it with Jones and Dillon, you could really open it up for Jordan Love late in the game, especially against the Chiefs defense that's been poor. So personally, I'm taking the Chiefs and the under just because I think that the Packers are going to pound the ball, and I think the Chiefs could struggle to move it on the Packers defense. But this could really flip over and go like Packers over on this at the end of the day if Jordan Love finds his rhythm.
Ugh. I wish we could get a Rodgers-Mahomes matchup. That's really – Billy, you mentioned that. How would we keep getting cheated out of this? I'm taking Casey in the under, and I don't want to touch this game. I do not like Jordan Love. The Packers are about to get a taste of what life without Aaron Rodgers is going to look like. It's going to be ugly and nasty. I don't want anything to do with anybody except for Aaron Jones and some A.J. Dillon for the reasons Tom was kind of saying. But the Chiefs, talk about a get-right game. This is so – this could be where the run starts. I don't think nobody is going to score a ton of points. I think nobody here is going to score a ton of points. But, God, Jordan Love is about to make everybody beg Aaron Rodgers to sign a 10-year extension there. It is not pretty, in my opinion, with what we're about to see. I am benching every Packer in DFS. And, again, you can't bench Aaron Jones because he's freaking Aaron Jones. Same with Adams, but nowhere in DFS will have anybody for them. On the other side of the ball, I don't want to touch anybody over here either. It doesn't look good in Kansas City, and until it does, again, you start them in your regular lineup. But DFS, I'm not touching this game at all. Anybody in this game. It's Jordan Love. We are going to be laughing next week. I am highly suspicious that we're going to be laughing next week about how bad the Packers are going to be without Aaron Rodgers. It's not going to be good, in my opinion. I don't like Jordan Love, if you can't tell. You don't have anything
Ryan,
else?
do you like Jordan Love?
Not a big fan. I'm really upset too, because if you had to put a gun to my head and said, what's my favorite team? I would say the Packers. I would say my fantasy team is my favorite, but if the favorite NFL team would probably be the Packers. And I'm going, oh God, if Rodgers leaves, this is what I'm going to have to get to look forward to. My dad's going to be so upset. He's a big Packers fan. I'm not looking forward to it. This is not going to be a good game, in my opinion.
Man, the irony of the Packers beating the Cardinals without Devontae, that having to play the Chiefs without Aaron Rodgers is incredible.
Yeah, if they manage to win this, this is a magical season if they manage to win this, but I don't think they can with Love unless they just can run the ball so effectively and efficiently. And if they're that one-dimensional, I don't think anybody can run the ball that effectively when they're that one-dimensional. So I don't like this game. Which brings us to a game. Oh, Jordan Love is his high school AD's grandson, Phil. That's awesome, dude. I mean, for you, I hope he does well so you can say you know him, but I don't think it's going to go well for your high school AD's grandson this Sunday.
That's pretty cool, though.
That is really cool. So we move on to Cardinals, -1.5 at the 49ers. This feels weird for a variety of reasons. The 49ers have somehow managed to score. Deebo Samuel's an animal, but 46 seems low, and 1.5 seems really close. I think Arizona needed to lose. I think that was one of the best things that could have happened to them. That pressure of remaining undefeated is gone now. They can play more loose. This is a divisional game coming off of an L. I think they're going to blow San Fran out. But again, I'm always using Deebo Samuel. He's in a way, he's kind of like AJB. I don't think the matchup matters. They use him in different ways. He's such a physical specimen when you talk about athletically. And then Elijah Mitchell has been really wow. I don't think any of us nobody really saw that coming. I mean, who could have thought? We were all Sermon lovers, and to see Mitchell be as effective as he has been really nice to see. I got him in a couple places. I wish I would have got him more. But for the Cardinals, this is a Kyler get-right game. Play all your Cardinals and play Samuel, but this is going to be a Cardinals bloodbath, in my opinion. We're all on the same page here.
Yeah, so I'm with you with the Cardinals needing to lose. It was kind of a funny game, and really, I mean, if A.J. Green turns around, they probably win that game. They're 8-0, and the Niners are just the next piece of the buffet in the way. There's no reason I'm avoiding my guys in this game. Deebo, I think, is in for another big one. As far as the Cardinals go, that offense can go off at any time. I like Christian Kirk as one of those flex guys. Just in this matchup, being a divisional matchup, I think he's got a pretty good opportunity to have a good day. So, I think there will be some fireworks. Elijah Mitchell, like you said, Ryan, is really doing well, killing my Trey Sermon hopes that I had coming into the year. And another guy to look out for you guys, James Conner, 3 touchdowns the last 2 games, quietly becoming a nice little consistent flex piece for you with this poor running back climate we've been talking about all day. So give me the Cards and the over. I don't think there will be a shortage of points in this one. At 2 points, I think the Cardinals pull that out.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go Cardinals on this, right? I don't think that's a question. And I'll take the over. I think that the 49ers score enough to keep up with them a little bit and keep it interesting. But it's going to be Cardinals putting up over half of this over-under. So, 28 points or so, easy. I mean, Kyler playing at a great level. And the biggest thing to me that's impressive from this Cardinals team actually is Chase Edmonds, James Conner. They're both playing at serviceable levels. They're not RB1s, but I'm cool having either one on my team as a flex. And I'm pretty confident game in and game out with them that they're going to get those touches to be viable. Zach Ertz instantly became, an option when he went to Arizona there. I think that moving from Philadelphia helped out Ertz and Goddard. So I do like him. And then, I mean, obviously DeAndre Hopkins, huge. Rondale Moore is somebody I do want deep on my dynasty rosters. We've seen glimpses of what he can do. And I think that if you scheme properly, he can really have a massive impact on games. And maybe it's not somebody that you're going to play every week, but it's, we use this name a lot, but the Deshaun Jackson-esque, right? It's boomer bust, but those games where he goes off, he's going off, right? I think that's going to be his career. 49ers, on the other hand, Jimmy G starting again, right? It just doesn't do it for me, right? He doesn't excite me that much, so I'm not in on him. And even if it was Trey Lance, I can't say I'm super in on him as my starter in fantasy. But either way, you know the receivers here. It's pretty clear who you want, and as long as George Kittle's out, I'm not touching a tight end. So that's about it.
Yeah. I will say one thing. We were talking about Singletary and Moss. This is the ultimate version of that. Connor is an absolute animal in the goal line, and Edmonds tears them up in the heart of the field. This would be like a fully realized version of Moss and Singletary. Because, I mean, Connor is not getting the touches you think to be fantasy relevant, but all of his touches are right around the red zone. My God, he capitalizes. And then Edmonds is tearing it up in them. These guys are an excellent 1-2 punch for what Arizona likes to do with their offense. This has worked out great. Our biggest concern with Connor was injuries. He's not getting the touches where his body's breaking down. They are using him so effectively. I love watching this backfield. Connor is an absolute nightmare in the red zone, and Edmonds is an absolute nightmare in the open field. This has been awesome to watch. I guess that takes us to a fun game for me.
Absolutely. Take it away, Tom.
Yeah, so we have the Sunday night game here. Titans, Rams. Titans are 6-2 going into Los Angeles. The Rams are 7-1, favored by 7.5 points. Sorry, we don't have it on the footer there. My apologies. But I'm going Rams on this. I don't think that's a question. Obviously, the Titans lost Derrick Henry. That's a massive blow to this team. I think we all know that. I am taking the under personally. I think it's just because the Rams are going to put this game at their own pace. They know that the Titans are going to have to try and keep up. So the question is, how much can Ryan Tannehill keep up, even with some great receivers, right? Obviously, Julio Jones, A.J. Brown out there. They did bring in, old man Peterson. I don't see him having a big impact this week. Maybe in a week or two, we can revisit it. But I think that this week it's A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. They're going to get every touch you could think of. And then on the other side, I mean, if the Rams are a pretty consistent team week in, week out, Stafford's an MVP candidate to me this year. I don't know about you guys, but he's playing impressive football. And I think it just shows the talent that he had for years with Detroit. And it's so sad to see that it was wasted there for so long. So I'm taking the Rams in the under. Like I said, I think the Rams will just give it to Henderson a bit, kind of play this at their pace. If they need to open it up, they can, but I don't think they'll have to.
AJB. This is going to be the coming out party of all coming out parties against Jalen Ramsey. I'm not concerned about the matchup for him. Not having Henry means there is one bona fide superstar on this roster, and it's AJB. Julio's not that anymore. He's an excellent receiver, but that's not what he is anymore. Not in that level that Henry is at, and then I think that AJB is at. So I'm taking Tennessee in the under. Tennessee's defense is not good, but they have been playing better. They're not a good defense, but they do. There is talent there. The Rams are talented all over the place. The problem is I don't think there's a single player in the game as good as AJB. You could argue Aaron Donald. I would even argue against just because of the way they can both affect the games. But to me, this is an AJB locked into every single freaking lineup. People are not going to be chalking him up because of Jalen Ramsey likely shadowing him. It doesn't matter. Tannehill just needs the time to let AJB get open. He will get open. I'm going to be contrarian. I'm taking Tennessee. I'm going to put money on this game. And if Adrian Peterson comes in immediately, I'm all over it. That guy has been effective even in his older age. He's not like a top 10 running back, but he will be effective. That will be enough to get AJB with a passing game in general going. And then on the other side of the ball, I mean, Cooper Kupp, there's that guy's really a plug and play every single week. The way he's looked at right now is crazy. And then Henderson should have some pretty good run as well. This should be a high scoring game. I don't think they'll hit that 53.5 though. That's why I'm leaning under, because I do think both these teams are going to try at least to run the ball effectively, and it could stay close enough where the run game stay alive and kind of chew that clock up where they can't reach, because they get to there eventually. Both these teams can score.
I'm taking the Rams and the over. We're all kind of mixed up here as far as what our thoughts are, but here's why. I think the Rams are going to score a lot of points, a whole lot of points. I think the Titans are going to push them for quite a while until the Rams start to separate and really just kind of put the Titans in a spot where, they just don't have a whole lot of options to do anything, that you haven't seen throughout this game. I do like the A.J. Brown matchup. Jalen Ramsey or not, I feel like he's just a little bit different animal. The guy's super physical, and he's just exploding right now. And like me and Ryan were talking about before, like an 11-catch, 150-yard day, you're like not realizing he has that big a day because he just impacts the game so gradually throughout the entire game. He's just one of those guys that gets building, he gets going, and he's going. He's going big time right now for the Titans offense, and they're going to lean on him humongously without having Derrick Henry. Adrian Peterson or not, the guy doesn't know the playbook, and no one's ever talked about Adrian Peterson's football IQ being something where you can hand him a playbook and in 3 days he's ready to rock. He's just not that guy. However, I do think he's serviceable. If you're in running back trouble, the volume is going to be there, and that's the reason that they signed and only worked out Adrian Peterson, because he's the type of guy that's built, made for, and wants that kind of workload. I do think that both teams score here. I think the Rams score at will. Cooper Kupp in for a monster day. Robert Woods citing another guy that I think is noteworthy right now that everybody's overlooking. I want to be a little early and letting you know, go get Van Jefferson now. Back-to-back games with 6 or more targets, double-digit fantasy points in PPR, had a touchdown the week before last. No Deshaun Jackson. This guy was keeping Deshaun Jackson off the field, and now the little bit of reps they were giving Deshaun Jackson aren't his now. This kid is developing quickly, second-year product, and he's fitting in very nicely. And Stafford's looking for him in the red zone. They got a little thing going where he's not just a deep threat. He's a legitimate number 3 wide receiver in this offense. So definitely a guy I think would be smart to give a look in your wide receiver 3 spot, flex spots moving forward, not just this week. You guys got anything left there?
No, but I like that Van Jefferson call.
Me too. That was what I was going to say. I support the Van Jefferson movement.
Yes, I hope he gets going. Guy I'm a little bit of a fan of, but the numbers are saying go get him now, guys. He's going to be a hot commodity soon. All right, next matchup, our Monday night game. Last game we'll talk about tonight. Bears at 3-5, heading to Pittsburgh to play the 4-3 Steelers, which I think the Steelers at 4-3 are relatively vulnerable. Favored by 6.5, over/under a 40, relatively low over/under. I'm going to take the Steelers in the under. I'm not sure the Bears can score. I don't want to start any Bears unless David Montgomery somehow gets activated and is ready to go. I'm staying away from every single Bear against this Pittsburgh defense. On the other side of the ball, Najee Harris just absolutely killing it. The volume of receptions and runs. He is the Steelers' offense. Deontay Johnson, also another nice piece that even though Juju's gone, his production, his target share hasn't really changed. He's still a playmaker. And to jump on Ryan real quick, I'm sure he's going to mention Pat Freiermuth, another guy, young guy, heating up, catching touchdowns. This team is looking for Big Pat when they get down there in the red zone, and that's what you want out of tight ends. A lot of guys get 3 catches for 30 yards. A touchdown is what sets these guys apart a lot of times. So Pat Freiermuth getting that kind of looks in the red zone is very encouraging to me. He's a big body kid, playmaker, and he can be covered. Look at his touchdown last week. The guy's an athlete. It wasn't a fluke catch, and I think he continues to grow. Get him on your lineups now, if you're especially if you're in tight end trouble. Pat Freiermuth could be a big, big piece rolling down the back stretch of the season.
I told y'all with Patty F. In draft coverage, I went in on Patty F because you know what? He's athletic enough. He's not Gesicki, right? He's not that overly athletic guy, but he's got size. He's got enough athleticism to get some separation, and he can block. So he gets the opportunities to be on the field, especially on a team like Pittsburgh where their offensive line can't block worth a damn, right? So I love Patty F. I'm all in on him. I have him a lot of places, and I'm trying to start him anywhere I can. I think you're right. This is a big week for him against the Bears. Najee, obviously, a big one that you want to play. Is Monty coming back, though?
Soon, I hope. They need him back. He was
I believe he's
so
eligible to be activated, but I have not heard they're doing it yet. I think it's kind of this is the first opportunity for him to actually be back.
I would probably wait an extra week then. If he does play this week, I would probably hold off if you can. Yeah, we do need him back. I have plenty of Monty exposure myself, and I'm hurting from it. But I think that I would wait another week to bring him back. And then the other question is going to be, is Matt Nagy coaching this week? Because, dear
I hope
Lord,
not for the Bears' sake.
right? I was saying last week, I was like, Matt Nagy is going to miss the game and they're going to win. I mean, shit. It's just a bad team there. I'm going Pittsburgh, and I'm taking the under, mostly because I think that at the end of the day, Chicago is just going to play some probably piss poor football. Even after last week when they competed with the Niners, I think Matt Nagy's going to come back and just shoot this team in the fucking kneecaps again.
Yeah, when I look at this game, I also like the Steelers, but I like the over. I do think the Steelers can do their part, but on the other side, Fields is capable of having those big plays, like one or two really big plays, and he seems to be targeting Mooney the most, and that's kind of a big play receiver. I'm really concerned about the run game. I know Herbert got banged up. I don't know if he's back. I know Monty's got to be back soon, so I don't think there's really a chance that the Bears win, but they could score 14, 17 points, and that's enough for the Steelers to get 23, and you're at the over-under already, and I think the Steelers are very capable of doing that with Najee and, like you said, Deontay, and then Pat F. Look, as long as Ebron's out, to me, he's a tight end one option. He was very touchdown dependent last week, but the guy is just a playmaker. He's baby Gronk. He isn't the Pitts. He isn't Gesicki and Knox. What he is a big body that can block and is a red zone threat and has sure hands. Like, this is the number one tight end in most draft classes. He just happened to be with a tight end that now plays wide receiver. So Pat F, yeah, all the way. I started him in my home league, number one league. I was so excited that he scored. But give me Pittsburgh, and I'll just lean the over because, again, Fields has that anytime one big play capability, and I think that hits a couple times. And I would lean Mooney as the guy that I think it's going to hit to. So sneaky start for Mooney, not starting anybody else for the Bears, and then Najee, Deontay, and a little Pat F sprinkled in. Although, again, this isn't like Gesicki for me. Like, there's no comparison this week for Gesicki and Pat F, but I do have lots of Pat F, and I am starting him in places.
I just got to say, you got to love money with two O's, right?
Yeah, agreed. He's been, since Fields has started, he's been their wide receiver one.
Yeah. He's got big play potential. He's a great receiver. I think he has the ability to be a solid player. I do want to say I hate that Allen Robinson's getting so much hate because it's very clear it's not him that's struggling. It's this offense. Again, stop the Allen Robinson hate.
I wish somebody would have went and rescued him from Chicago at the trade.
Oh, my God, I wish.
Poor guy.
Just trade for Matt Nagy.
Yeah. Trade for Matt Nagy and fire him.
Yeah.
Well, as always, it's been fun, right? You all know where you can check us out. If you haven't been following us, as always, tell them where they can find you. Twitter. Really, I know, Ryan, for you, it's not Twitter. It's going to be on Sleeper. If you don't have Sleeper, then you got bigger issues to deal with. But
yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Real Ryan Hicks. Currently writing for at FF Faceoff. They do DFS and all sorts of stuff, and that's where my stuff that I'm writing has been going. So shout out to those guys. Seen some good work over there. But yeah, like you said, I'm on Twitter to very little. You have to directly at me or something to get my attention on Twitter. I'm on Sleeper. I'm doing lineup changes. I'm surfing waiver wires. I'm looking for trades. If you want me, that's where you'll find me. I check that all day, every day. And that's Ryan Hicks 63 on Sleeper. That's where we do the St. Jude Bowl. That's where I do almost all my leagues, all of them if I could help it. But if you're looking to talk, because I'll talk start sits, trades, which guy's hair do I like best? If it's involved in football, I'll talk about it. So hit me up anywhere on social media. But again, Sleeper's where you're going to get the fastest reaction and the most engaged conversation because I'm always checking lineups and always checking waivers, and you should be too.
Yeah, you can catch me at BWit24 on Sleeper and Twitter. I'm on there active as well, so hit me up. Start sits, lineup questions, trade questions, input, general input. I'm down for any of it too. Love to talk football. Love to get trade advice. I love to see some of the offers that people put together. It's really interesting sometimes to kind of see the angles people are trying to work. So, yeah, hit me up. Let me know what you're up to.
Yep. And as always, myself at FFR Tom. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter. We also have at FantasyFR Live on Twitter. Feel free to tag us, DM, whatever. Happy to answer any start sits. And like you said, Billy, I do love some of these trades. We're coming up on the trade deadlines for a lot of fantasy leagues. Weeks 9, 10, 11. That's kind of the heart of it. So, if you have questions, that's what we're here for. Hit us in the comments next week, every Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. So this has been the Fantasy First Rounders. And hey, just keep in mind that stats win ships.
Happy.
Ryan, get it in. I cut you off.
Happy football.
There you go.